Hello and welcome back for another episode of Catching Up with Evo GK. I'm Paul Banks and today's guest is the amazing Jonny Maddison. So Jonny brings a mix of real playing experience along with modern coaching insight and does that at Sunderland AFC. Jonny's a Sunderland Academy graduate himself and went on to play as a professional goalkeeper across the EFL and the National League system, clubs including Crawley Town, Leicester City, Yeovil, Darlington, Vale, and he was part of the Leicester City setup during their Premier League title era, so lots of tales I'm sure. Made 22 appearances for Yeovil Town and then later returned close to home with Darlington before moving into coaching. Now he's back at Sunderland. Jonny works with the club's young goalkeepers, or has done till recently, helping shape the next generation through the academy pathway. His role focuses on supporting goalkeeper development across the academy and developing a clear route for young players to progress their careers. And until recently, where Jonny has now moved into working more directly with Neil Cutler and the first team goalkeepers as well. So we'll cover that as part of the questions. But going back to what I've just said, I think what makes Jonny's perspective, as far as this podcast is concerned, so valuable is that he's lived both sides of the journey. So he's been that professional level goalkeeper, he's done it at the highest levels, involved with clubs winning the Premier League. There's not much more that you can say to that. But then also moving into the coaching environment and working with all age groups from the young goalkeepers. And if you're a regular on match days at Sunderland, you'll see Jonny stepping out on the pitch and warming the first team keepers up on match days as well. So lots and lots and lots to cover. Jonny, thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you.
Genuinely a pleasure.
Brilliant.
And I'm pleased you've recovered, because as we record this, we are not sure when this episode's going to go out, but less than 48 hours ago, Sunderland qualified for the Europa, having finished 7th in the Premier League. My voice is just about recovered. Jonny's head has just about been screwed back onto his shoulders to be able to do it today. And on top of that, he's run a full day's coaching sessions with Evo at the Beacon of Light. So no doubt your head is absolutely battered, Jonny, and if you need to take a moment during your
I'm just delighted to sit down, if I'm brutally honest. It's been a really, really fun 9 hours. So no, really glad to be here.
Amazing. So as I do with all of the goalkeepers and the coaches that we speak to, before we get into your journey, I'd like to just ask, who was your goalkeeping idol growing up?
Truthfully, I don't think this one's going to go down too well. Because I looked at it when you gave me the question initially and I said, am I going to be truthful here? And I am going to be truthful.
Good.
Shea Given was my idol growing up. When Newcastle were in the Champions League, I just thought the way he conducted himself around the goal, how reactive he was under his crossbar, and some of the big moment saves you'd see him make was amazing. I'd say from a local sense and seeing him live, that was definitely someone who I looked up to. Moving more into me as a player, I would say Joe Hart was very influential in that, in a sense of the England goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Joe in his prime was a beast in a sense of what he was psychologically, physically, and then also his game output as well.
He's really calm, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I had a soft spot for Shea Given when I was a kid as well. I mean, obviously he spent his time here and we have a long history of really good goalkeepers here at Sunderland. So I'm really not surprised. I mentioned at the beginning that you came through the Academy of Light yourself. What do you remember most clearly about being a young keeper at Sunderland?
The amount of times I was there, really. I think even in the game today, you see it within the academy, it's a real investment from not only the player but from the families. And I think the amount of hours you spend dedicating to your craft for an outcome that is not guaranteed is really, really difficult. And to be in the system from 9-year-old, believe it or not, I started playing for my local team as an outfielder at 9 years old, 8, 9 years old. My dad was the manager, the old cliche in that sense.
Yeah.
Today's episode venue was brought to you by the Hilton Garden Inn just outside the Stadium of Light. They provide matchday hospitality to Sunderland fans. If you do want to drop by for some food and drinks before the game, please do have a look on their social media pages where they're going to confirm the dates that they'll have the match day offering in place for the 26-27 season soon.
The goalkeeper had left I was some lanky, tall beanpole playing in the middle of the park, and my dad just went, "In you go, son," into the Russell Foster. And it was actually a tournament we were playing in, and the opposite manager had to rank the opposition goalkeeper out of 10, and that kind of score was collated at the end of the tournament.
Right.
And it just so happened on that day that I'd scored the highest points. So I'm standing there collecting this trophy, and a Sunderland scout comes up to me and goes, "How long have you been playing in goal, son?" And I went, "About 5 hours." And he was like, "Oh, like, would you like to come in for a trial?" And back in those days, it was the old 6 to 8 week trial process. And I actually only played 2 games at under 9s, and straight away my mum and dad were in. They were taking me, they took me for a tour around the academy and basically just sat me down and were like, "Do you know why you're here, son?" And I was like, "No, not really." And he was like, "Oh, we'd like to sign you." And literally I hadn't looked back since then.
Amazing.
So really unique space I was in with regards to the 10 years at the football club within the academy that I had. The cohort of goalkeepers we worked with over the span of the 10 years was remarkable, and I think that's credit to Mark Prudder, who again needs no introduction in a sense of myself working alongside him now as a coach, but him being my coach as well. In the early days, really kind of giving me that core foundation to go and have a career in the game as well as many others.
And so, what age were you? Because you were released eventually by Sunderland in 2013. So, what age group were you?
I was the end of my second year scholar. So it was a difficult moment. Naturally, it was my first release. Sunderland had been my club for 10 years. We lived in the local area, 20-minute commute, 5 times a week. I was getting out of school twice a week. I'd trained with the first team. I trained with the old reserve teams. I'd been exposed to an array of different things, and then that can soon end in a 20-minute conversation just before the New Year period. I think thankfully again, I'll echo that Pruds had a secondary plan for me. He thought I needed to go and experience the EFL, and thankfully I went into League One as a number 2 at just 18 years old. And our first game was live on Sky away to Swindon, which I'll never forget. I sat on the bench, but in the moment as a second year scholar, it was just kind of from academy football straight into the senior game, and it was just sink or swim. And I think it didn't allow me a lot of time to reflect on the downsides or the negative aspect of the release, and just allowed me to just kind of go straight into the professional game.
Which I can imagine that's really important to have that plan B lined up, because I'd imagine there's a lot of players out there that take that really personally, or there's potential to take it really personally and reflect on you're just not good enough. But that's not the case, is it? It's not the way it's worked.
Yeah, I think naively, I could sit here now and go, yeah, I had a plan B, but I didn't. And I think you'll probably ask 90% of players now at that age, you don't have a plan B, because your ego's telling you, and you were telling yourself, I'm going to be a footballer. And I think if you didn't have that mindset, of that selfish mindset, I think the likelihood of you making it will be tough. It really would, because the game is more competitive now than ever. The amount of coaching and detail and opportunity and talent out there is ridiculous. And when you look at it, it's all got to be crammed into the best league in the world of 20 teams. And you look at that from a goalkeeping context, 20 teams of 3 goalkeepers, that's 60 spots in the world of all ages that you need to be a part of. So kind of when you look at the stats,
and to your point, two of those in each team are kind of sat on the bench waiting for their moment.
Exactly.
Frightening. And then obviously you were at Leicester City as well, during something that's never happened before during that period of time. Talk me through, how did you get to Leicester City? What was your role during that time? And
so it actually worked out well for me doing the Crawley and the League One aspect first. So like I say, I think when I look back on my career as a whole, the academy, although I was there for 10 years and I got a great amount of detail, I think players sometimes sleepwalk into a little bit of mediocrity almost, and I'll openly say that when I look back at it, and kind of the release or the news were the best thing for me, because it actually allowed me to reset and go again. I had 18 months at Crawley, and it was a real experience in a sense of what League One football looked like and the not so glamorous aspects of it. So when I went back to Leicester and I was back in a football club that was really well resourced and had really good people around it, it was a bit of an epiphany in a sense of I'm not going to let this go by any stretch. And, so the work rate kind of knuckled down tenfold. And being around at the time, Mike Stowell was the goalkeeping coach, and we didn't have a lot of numbers in the PDP, which is your 18s and 21s phase. So Mike was very keen on integrating the under 21 boys or under 23 at the time with the first team. So to kind of work on a daily basis with Mark Schwarzer, Kasper Schmeichel, Ben Hamer was a real privilege for me. And like you say, the mindset of the football club at the time was before the training ground, before Seagrave came. They prided themselves under just hard work. It was a non-negotiable at the time. Nigel Pearson was the manager, and it suited me to the ground. So, like you say, for the kind of the 2 seasons I spent there, a real array of unforgettable memories, really, looking back.
I can only imagine. Well, what you talked there about some of the senior goalkeepers that you worked alongside during your career. What's the biggest learning point that you took in that phase when you're still a goalkeeper yourself? What's the biggest learning point that you took from more senior goalkeepers that you're around? What did you try and emulate from them that kind of made you better, I guess?
I think I touched on it earlier, and it's a little bit of quiet arrogance, and I call it quiet arrogance because Neil talks about it again, and I know we'll touch on Neil in a little bit, but he's big on a saying of confidence on the verge of arrogance, and it's a real fine line that you walk, because in order to be top level and deal with the pressures of crowds, media, expectation, on a consistent basis, by the way, not just once in a blue moon, you have to have a confidence or an ego about you that is going to allow you to do that. But I think importantly, you look at the top athletes in the game, or not even in football, just in sport in general, they have this really high ego, but they balance it with an unbelievable humility. And I think to have that capacity to hold both is a real skill in itself.
I think that's something that's been echoed a lot by the other coaches that we've spoke to on the show as well. And I think it's almost ironic that for such a physical game, the key elements for so many players, and it's not just limited to goalkeepers, the key elements for so many players are actually mental. And yet, that's probably the part that nobody spends any time coaching people on at a young age, or that sometimes that you can even coach into people, because you've got to kind of come to that yourself as well, haven't you? Really, it's either in you or it's not.
Yeah.
And it's like aggression, right? Like you can't make an under 7, under 8 goalkeeper more aggressive at what they do. They've got to come to that themselves. Yeah. So you've found your way back to Sunderland, and was that intentional? Was that always part of what you wanted to do in the end? Did you see yourself coming back to Sunderland eventually, or?
Truthfully, no, I didn't. And truthfully, I didn't see myself when I transitioned out from playing as a coach. I knew I had detail and good understanding of what I wanted. I was a little bit naive or inexperienced in the sense of how I wanted to communicate it across the players. So when the coronavirus, when the pandemic came in, that was my last contract under Port Vale. And I had a real crossroads in my life in a sense of what I wanted to do. I had 2 years away from football completely, because I think psychologically I was tapped out with the game. 1 and 2 year deals here and there, moving to every corner of the country, missing out on key events. It was like an unbelievable sacrifice. It's the same old story that will be echoed by many. But people only see the good sides of football, and I think again reiterating that the season as a whole, or seasons as a whole, are really tolling on you physically and mentally. So I had 2 years out of the game, and I'll say this open and honestly, I was a delivery driver at Amazon, because I had no skills. I had unbelievable aspects to give from a footballing sense. But from qualifications, all my friends were electricians, plumbers, skilled tradesman, and what could I offer? Luckily, in that moment, the pandemic was, the going rate was everyone was ordering online.
Yeah.
So the going rate, so actually it was my brother that got me in the back door with regards to Amazon. The money was okay. It helped. It was important because I had to pay bills. And
give you breathing space, right?
Yeah, I had 2 years of just being normal. And I say normal loosely in a sense of, if I wanted to go out to see my friends on a Tuesday night, play a bit of pool, maybe have a beer or two, get some food, see birthdays with my mum, my dad. My mum was shielding at the time in the pandemic, and again there was just a lot of things that made me just want to be normal again. And I first came back into coaching through Middlesbrough. It was after the 2-year period. There was a job on Indeed regarding just a part-time role, 9 to 16s. I just fired my CV out and went, I will give this a go. They've been in touch. I delivered 2 sessions and they were like, yeah, we want to take you on board. And it turned from part-time to pretty much full-time. Working with the 9 to 16s, really, really good club, really good people. Loved it. Was there for 4 to 6 months. And then I was on a CPD event actually, when England come and they deliver the kind of processes to all the different regions. And it was hosted at Sunderland. So I kind of went back to the club and I seen a lot of old faces that I hadn't seen for like 10, 12 years. That was like the cleaning staff, the kitchen staff, Prud was there. And they were just like, we thought you were still playing. Well, where have you been? And I was just like, no, I'm coaching. And they were like, you're joking. And then one thing turned into another and I ended up being in there full time. So I'm kind of really privileged to be sitting here now in the position I am 4 years on. But yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world now. I look back at it and it's all my experiences have shaped me to who I am, and naturally football is where my heart is and where my skill set is, so long may that continue.
That's amazing, and I can only imagine that means a lot to you personally, being a Sunderland boy and growing up through the academy to return home to give things another, to give the next generation their chance and spend some time with them. It's a fantastic story. Obviously you've worked quite closely with the academy keepers, but you're now taking the next step in your own career, I guess, and getting to work along Neil, who, from the conversations I have with people, is like Neil's one of the best goalkeepers coaches in the world, bar none. Yeah. So what's the plan? Is there a plan? Or is it kind of redundancy planning? I don't know how much you can share or how much you can't.
With regard to Neil,
with you working with Neil, whether you'll step up and.
Well, I think firstly when the promotion happened a year ago, there was a lot of question with regards to what the coaching remit would look like. Alessandro, who by the way is an excellent young modern goalkeeping coach who coached in so much detail and helped me so much in the years prior. He almost had me indirectly working with him a lot whenever he could. He appreciated that my commitment still lay with the academy. But whenever he could get me over there, he would. Working with the senior boys at the time, I think it was Pat, Nathan Bishop, Alex Bass, Jake Carney. It was really, really good for me to get that exposure early. And I think, like you say, I was sitting in quite a niche space in a sense of me being quite younger for a coach, being a player and also having a bit of coaching detail as well. So it allowed me to be really relatable with the boys and settle in with the seniors quite easily, maybe easier than most. So, like you say, when Neil had the chance to come in last year, for me it was a reason that made me want to stay. Not that I was in any rush to leave, but that it was just like, wow, to work with this guy and even pull some little nuggets of kind of where he's been, what he's seen, who he's worked with. I mean, his time at Villa, and obviously Emmy Martinez speaking as highly of him as what he is, and the podcast he's been on from previous. I think the key thing I took from it was on the first day he sat me down and he just wrote environment, and everyone thought it was going to be, or I thought anyway, it was going to be some kind of magic word or way of coaching that made him him. but it wasn't. It was the environment, and it was how we were with the players, our relationships with the players, and he said, I want that right from the get-go. So kind of he selfishly utilised me a lot more in this season, and like you say, as the department is growing, it's going to be, like you say, looking really positive going into next year and into Europe. So
it's like, I can only imagine, because from an outside perspective, we hear a lot of how good the academy is and how we value bringing the young players through, and we've always done well. We've always developed and brought on, but I guess the sticking point for Sunderland is we've always ended up being the club that had to cash in on them because we were never quite big enough to hold on to the level of some of the players. Jordan Pickford being a great example. We would have loved to have held on to him. But I guess as we've now moved into being a Premier League club again and moving forward into Europe, but it makes sense that the coaching staff also get those opportunities, not just to be working with the academy, but to be working with the first team and bring the two together, because that gap now between academy and first team must be monumental.
Yeah.
Bigger than it's ever been before, right?
And I think that was the biggest thing of kind of what we went after this year with especially the PDP goalkeepers, because we were looking at that gap of what it was, I would say somewhat linear, but not really. But when we were in the Championship, it was more linear when we were in League One, because the opportunity of the players there were a lot higher, because of the resource had or didn't have. And like I say, when we went into the Premier, that gap had just gone from 21s to first teams.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there almost like in the space in between the two, going, what can we do? What can we affect? What can we change? And I think the biggest thing we utilised this year was the loan system, and how we managed the loans of some of the senior players in the 21s to go and get a CV in the game, go and get a real exposure of what it looks like in the non-league, and more importantly, give the younger players in the academy an opportunity. And like you say, we've got players like Joe Cowan who played in the PL Cup final at 16 years old in the under-21s, which is remarkable.
Phenomenal.
And it's the same as Matty, when Matty had that opportunity as well. But we're big advocates now on we have to stretch, but we also have to be very careful of what that stretch looks like, because when you stretch things, they can snap, they can break. So we have to make sure that, I would say, if you look at it from a four-corner perspective, technical, tactical, physical, psychological, the two key aspects that we look for in the goalkeeper is, are they physically capable to handle the demands of being stretched into a senior environment or into a phase above them, like age group, and are they psychologically capable to do it? Have they got good temperament?
That was probably one of the questions I'm quite curious about, is how much contact do you have with the goalkeepers that are out on loan? Like, do you spend a lot of time with their current parent clubs, working with them on the development plans, or is it kind of you're theirs now and we'll see you in a bit?
I think I kind of subconsciously took on the goalkeeping loans manager role within the 21s, especially. We had Dan Cameron out on loan to Hebburn Town. We had Isaac Allen out on loan to Hebburn Town. Because of Dan's performances for Hebburn, it turned into a Step 1 National League loan to Boston, which was great, because it was shown to me that his CV was becoming stronger, he was getting noticed, and that secondary loan would never have come about if the Hebburn aspect hadn't come. Thankfully, geographically, Hebburn is 20 minutes away, so we could control what his training provision looked like Monday to Friday. Hebburn were very accommodating with it, they were on board, and they just allowed him to play on the match day. We'd still give him his post-match analysis. Their analysts would send us through the clips that we could go through in the fine detail and kind of give them the same service as what it would be like playing in the 21s. And again, I think it just helped with the whole environment of the goalkeeping department. We had 6 in the PDP, and managing them all when there's only one 18s game on a Saturday and one under 21s game on a Monday, that's 4 others that aren't getting something. So like you say, from an outcome perspective, to have boys out on loan and boys getting their stretching around it was brilliant.
Amazing. And then coming back to where we are now, I mean, I've been bringing my son to games for 2.5 years, and we've seen you out on the pitch warming the keepers up almost that entire time, if not all of it. What's that experience like in pre-match on match day? With, you know, we're blessed in the northeast.
Yes.
I see that with bated breath, right? Like we're very blessed to have 3 big teams with huge support.
Yeah.
What's it like being out there with 48,000 people, setting expectations? You know, 3,000 away fans being quite loud and vocal.
You carry it hard, and I think I dread to think what someone like Robin carries when he's playing. He's in the moment, and I'm on the sidelines, and kind of my work's done.
Yeah.
So when an outcome happens, positive or negative, where sometimes sitting there going, what would I have done differently, or what could I have done more? How would I have structured the week, or how would myself and Cuts have structured the week? Should we have given him X or Y, or done whatever? But it's hindsight, isn't it? And I think that's the beauty of football. But going back to the magnitude of the club, and I'll give Sundays as prime example. We left on the coach from the academy from pre-match, and all of our prep was done, everything was ready. We were just ready to go to the game, and when we seen the masses that had congregated around the ground and the flares, and it took us 30 minutes to get into the ground because it was that much. But I knew straight away when we went down into the dressing rooms and sat, I knew we were going to win because of that. And I think from myself, and there'll be a lot of fans that are watching this, it's a big thank you from not only myself but the rest of the coaching staff and the players, that they were the 12th man in that, and they've been the 12th man all year. They've been brilliant, and like you say, it's so rewarding to see from someone who has a real personal affiliation with a football club, as well as a professional one.
If I might speak on behalf of the rest of the Sunderland fans, it's genuinely our pleasure to be the 12th man on that pitch, because I think we do appreciate, a lot of the time, a lot of the fans appreciate the hard work that goes into that preparation. You can see it in the moments before the match, how tuned in everybody is and how focused everyone is. But when you're in those final moments before, is there anything that you guys are particularly looking for as coaching team? Is it just a warm up, or is there anything else in there that you guys take away from that?
I think firstly the warm-ups are very precious to the goalkeeper, so they're very different. Obviously Robin has played the lion's share of the games. We've had a period where Melker has stepped in, and again I think he got a little bit of a baptism of fire in a sense of playing in the derby, and let alone making his Premier League debut. I think the key thing is, don't go in too hard with them, don't give them too much. Your detail's done in the week, Monday, Friday. They're intelligent guys. They know what they need and what they don't need. For me, the warm-up is more of a psychological rehearsal for them to emulate what they need. Some goalies I've known and I've worked with like to be overcooked. They like a lot of reps and a lot of up-down, so they feel ready. Others like less. With Robin, he's a little bit in between. I think one thing is his temperament is he knows exactly, he's not phased. He's really not phased, and for a boy who's just gone 23, to be able to handle that in an environment of 48,000 Mackhams is remarkable.
He doesn't. It's funny because I often think just even looking at him, he doesn't look 23. He doesn't look 22 as we first met him. He looks years and years older. Not because he's got an old face. He just carries. It's the way he carries himself. I think you're right. Like it's that charisma that. He just seems like he's born for that next level, and we're very, very privileged to have him around, to be able to see him firsthand before I've no doubt he will move on to do whatever he needs to do. I'd like to think we managed to keep him, but
fingers crossed.
But we've got our work cut out for us if that's what we're going to do, and that kind of comes into, you know, we talked about Sunday qualifying for the Europa League, and I guess was that still fresh in. You know, it's less than 48 hours since that moment. Are you guys now thinking hard about next season? How does that impact on your coaching? Because obviously you're playing 2 games a week over some parts of the year now. Do you train harder? Do you train less hard?
I think that's probably if I don't delve too much into the physical aspect of it, because the guys in the performance department, from especially first team level, have controlled that and candidly done a really, really good job on that. But I think just to kind of give you a small snippet of what it is, I think since the promotion, the game, the training week has been based more around your tactical aspects of what the opposition are, and from a recovery perspective, like the recovery aspect of the game is so important, because ultimately we can have you fresh for a training week, but your match day is where it all matters.
Yeah.
You can't see a manager going, oh well, we trained really well Monday to Friday but we lost. People don't care.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. So I think the managing of the week has been a real change in a sense of what the Championship offered in comparison to the Premier, and also for me personally, working within the academy from a developmental sense or developmental hat, going into a performance environment where your match day is your bread and butter, is your key focus, but it makes the week feel a lot more purposeful.
Yeah.
And then when the outcome comes, and hopefully a positive one, it also makes it a lot more rewarding as well.
You mentioned working with Neil earlier on, and his conversation about environment and being as one team. How does that get implemented in the everyday? What does that actually look like? Especially now, considering we're talking about elite level football now. We're in Europe, Premier League. What does that look like on a daily?
So you said something really interesting, and I think again, the guys watching and yourself will be under no illusions that the way the game is going, it's very tactical, it's very in-depth. There's so much information that's thrown around, whether it's from set plays, whether it's physical data and outputs in your GPS, whether it's formations, whether it's whatever, the analysis side of things, and there's so much thrown on the player psychologically that it can just be information overload. And I think sometimes the aspect of the human needs to come into play, because ultimately the players aren't robots. Yeah. And for us to have that connection and the goalkeeping coach in the role of us dealing with such small numbers and having that relationship, so we have days where we go heavy on social. And again, I think it's quite even in the modern day, like a lot of European influx, and they look and they see the social aspect, and it can sometimes be going, oh, what are they doing there? They're playing head tennis, or they're playing two-touch. Yeah. Kutz's got a really good game where we play two-touch, but we play it in a small grid. And basically there's balls everywhere, and if you hit balls you lose lives and X, Y, Z, and there's again, if you don't mind me sharing this, there's money on it. Yeah. And again, I'll say this quite lightly. Some of the money that Robin and some of the senior boys earn in comparison to us is considerably different. So when we're playing for 50 quid, I definitely don't want to lose. So it can get quite intense, but I think it's really, really good that we have that, because it keeps it competitive. It keeps you psychologically engaged in the session. And I think when we implement that at the start of training for 10, 15, 20 minutes, when they then go into the session, up here, they're firing, and they're already ready to go. Because again, you don't mind me saying, there's been many times whether you're a young kid or you're a senior goalkeeper, you'll roll out of bed one day and you'll be going, I don't fancy a day. Oh. Yeah. So like having that aspect at the start is so important, and Neil's design and his processes in the sense of what the session looks like. He's big on the reactiveness of not only the feet and how we move and the mechanics, but also the mind, stimulating the mind, the hand-eye coordination. So we do a lot of table tennis leading into training, and it's a tiny ball and it's intense and it's quick, but when you come out and you take it onto the grass, the guys are there upstairs. Yeah. So it's really, really creative and meticulous in what he does. But like I say, the cohort we're working with have been really receptive to that.
It's interesting because that's almost mirrors the way you teach academy players, right? Like make it fun, make a game of it, get them involved together. So it's interesting to hear that even at that elite level, there's a certain part of the keepers that still need that fun, the dopamine, the adrenaline, the competition, I guess. Going back to kind of match day, I guess. But like when the young keepers are watching from the terraces, they're watching their idols warming up down on the pitch. What's some of the things that they can take away from themselves, with preparation for their own match day or just in general?
I'd say the biggest thing, and I'd say this from a scouting perspective when I've gone to watch goalkeepers in the past, I think you get a lot from them when they're not in the working set. So in the sense of if they're doing a cross in practice, don't watch the final action of how they're claiming the cross. Watch when they're going to get the ball. Watch when they're standing by the goal.
Yeah.
How they're standing. What's their body language portraying to the rest of the, not only to their peers, but to the rest of the stadium. Do they look calm? Do they look assured? Do they look in control? Or is it the opposite of that? And I think you get a lot from that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that would probably be the one thing you look at.
I guess it's one of those things that like must be really hard to see that at a young age, because they're all full of beans, and when they're not in the moment, it can be really boring for them at that age, and then all of a sudden I can imagine they get to a certain age and it just clicks for them, which is when a lot of them get picked up. But it's interesting that, you know, and again, it's not something that they can really be coached on, but something they can be conscious of themselves, so that when they get to that age, they can do that.
I think it's, sorry to interrupt on that, I think it's important that you go through a process of being conscious, and again, touching on kind of Neil and what we deliver to the group, it's whether it's the save choice and the outcome, or whether it's a psychological coping skill, you have to be self-aware and conscious of what you're doing in the moment, but then take it to a subconscious outcome, because naturally in game you'll revert back to your subconscious, because the game is so quick and reactive. So important to kind of dip in and out of those two states. But I think, like you say, when you become more senior in yourself and more self-aware of what you are as not only a goalkeeper but as a person, really, really important to kind of dip between the two states.
And it's such an influential position as well. Like, I mean, you don't quite see as many keepers who are captains of their team anymore as you used to back in the 90s and the early 2000s, but it's still such a massively influential position. You know, I see a lot of young keepers, 3 or 4 goals past them, the chins go down, and I can only imagine the impact that has on the rest of the team. So to a certain extent, regardless of how you feel inside, it's about maintaining that calm exterior that helps give your team the confidence.
Yeah.
Do you think that the young keepers today understand enough about what an outfield coach would want from them? How does a young goalkeeper cross that barrier between, I'm just a shot stopper, for quite a lot of the young period of time, to be part of that outfield team and be effective and be noticed?
Well, I think firstly, just on that aspect, is if you were to break down goalkeeping from, say, defending the goal, defending the area, space, and in possession, if I was to say who's the best at defending the goal, you'd say X. If you were to say defending the space and area, you'd say Y. If you were to say in possession, you'd say another. So I think the key message in that is there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Just like an outfielder, the goalkeeper will possess a super strength, and they'll have areas of the game that they're not so comfortable with. And I think from a grassroots level, it's really important that the managers understand what their goalkeeper is, what their strengths are, and can you, more importantly, utilise that on a match day. Because like you say, we don't have the luxury of when you're working at a senior level and the club has a philosophy or a style of play, and they go and recruit a goalkeeper based on what that philosophy is. I think when you're at grassroots level, the education of the role is so important. And like you say, my kind of advice to any goalkeeper at that level is to just go and explore as many different avenues as possible. So like, go and get the ball from your centre half in the wackiest position. Go and be brave and come and affect that cutback cross or that aerial duel, or go out and block spread, because you'll find so much more out about yourself. Experiment
while you're in the development age, right? Like, you're there to have fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I personally try and influence with my son is, you know, if you're out there having fun, then you'll naturally experiment with things, but try not to feel that there's a lot of pressure in it, isn't there? It's a lot, it's hard. What would you say is, in your opinion, the biggest misconception young keepers have about playing out from the back?
It always has to be short. The actions in game with the ball at feet is undeniable in a sense of the responsibility of it and the amount of contacts with the ball at the feet you're going to have. So the goalkeeper, whether they like it or not, has to be efficient and effective with the ball at the feet, left and right foot. So we call first line passing with your back line, second line into your midfield, third line into your top line. You have to have an array of clubs in your locker to be able to execute. And I think it's like anything, when you say to the goalkeeper, right, we're going to play out from the back today, they think, oh, I just need to pass to my centre back. Yeah. And really, there's so much more to that.
Yeah.
And I think, like you say, the amount of times you see it in academies, you see it in any kind of youth phases where they go, well, the coach told me to play out from the back, play short, and it's such a closed-minded way of thinking. I think the key message in it is almost to watch the first team since the boss came in, and he's big on a word that he uses a lot in the build, and he says be adaptable, and it's such a refreshing way of putting it.
Yeah.
Because again in the top level, with the analysis of the opposition, what you have, you play in a certain way. I'm telling you now, the next Saturday you play, a team will be set up to combat the way you play. Mm-hmm. So you have to be adaptable. Yeah. And the same in the concept in the grassroots. If you're going to go short, only do it once, twice, 3 times. Then the next one might go to your fullback, might go into your 9, might go over the top. Yeah. And then it changes the dynamic. And then you can go back to playing short. So it's a bit of cat and mouse almost. And I think that's where your intelligence comes in. Yeah. You've got a I think common sense has to come in a little bit. But I think in the game now, coaches are what I'd class as super coaches, in a mentality of the detail and the education that players are getting now at a young age, technically and tactically, through their analysis. It's never any better than it's ever been, and it's brilliant because their game understanding is top. But what you're actually doing is you're taking away the emphasis of them making the decision in the moment, in the pressure, which brings me back to my earlier point of just keep exploring, just keep failing, and you'll learn. And the more situations you put yourself in, time after time after time, you're going to build those neurological patterns of, oh, well, this happened the last time I did it, so why don't I change it, or change this, or change the way I pass it into him, okay? And that's where your learning comes. So really, really, like, big message to just stay adaptable in who you are, but work on the technical aspects of what your choice of club is going to be. And I mean club by, as in what your pass is going to be. Yeah.
Obviously, I gave you some questions before we came here, but there is something else that's occurred to me whilst we've been sitting here talking, and I'm interested to hear your opinion on it. I'm a young goalkeeper. I want to be picked up by academy. I want to play professional. Do they need to play Premier League, first division, grassroots, to be able to be picked up by scouts at that age, or are there other options for them?
I think the biggest thing from a scouting perspective is, especially at those young ages when we look at it, the key message for me is, do they have a unique trait that makes them stand out from the rest? Now, you'll probably ask me, what is that? It could be anything. It could be this boy stands ridiculously high in the goal and in the build, and he just wants to get the ball all the time, and he's like an extra outfield player, and he's bumping. It could be that. Or he could just be an absolute demon in the goal and just make saves constantly, just like getting hit and block and brave as a lion. Or he could just have a personality, a pitch personality that we talk about, where his shoulders are back, his voice, he's commanding his back line, he's got that aura about him that's like rubbing off onto the rest of the team, and actually his in-game actions will be somewhat lower because he's actually diffusing situations without them becoming actual outcomes with regard to the goalkeeper. So I think the key thing we look at is do they have a clear super strength? Because ultimately you can be good across the board, but what's going to get you noticed is having a real super strength and polishing that super strength. But it could be absolutely anything.
I guess in answer to that, then, it doesn't matter whether they're playing Division 1, whether they're playing Division 3, Division 5. Probably more likely to be spotted at the higher level games, but
and I think especially going back to your experiences of what you're exposed to at a young age, I think if you're at a top team, where you're at the best team, and you're standing there and you're standing with your trophies at the end of your tournaments, and you've got a chest full of trophies, but actually I've probably only saved 3 shots all season. It's different.
Yeah.
Like, put yourself in the firing line. Like, and I think it's hard now more than ever, because of, I think, social media and pressure to perform, and people look at the outcome, and the outcome is the trophy, or the outcome is the kit or the picture or whatever that is. And I think, like you say, the process behind it of just having good habits and doing things right, and really walking off the pitch going, you know what, I got better today, is the key message. Development is so key at that age. Keep failing and failing and failing until you learn, because when the moment comes when you're warming up in front of 52,000, you can't fail.
Yeah.
And I'll put that bluntly, because there's detrimental factors to it.
Yeah.
But because you've failed so many times leading to that point, you have a coping mechanism of how to execute.
Yeah.
So really, really powerful and an important takeaway, I would say, with regard to that.
Amazing. Well, I've got 2 questions that remain. One kind of following on from what we've got, and then one bringing it back to you. But we spend a lot of time asking questions about the keepers and academies and careers and things. But for the parents that are out there and they've got a young goalkeeper, what do you often find that parents don't understand about the goalkeeper journey that you wish they did, that you wish that you could pass on to them or ingrain in them in some way?
It's bumpy. It's not linear.
Yeah.
I think that's life in general. I'm doing a lot of research now on the psychological aspect of the game, because I felt it was what I lacked as a player, and maybe was the reason why I didn't reach the heights of maybe that was once expected of me. I could perform, but not consistently. And the burden I carried psychologically, and that almost perfectionism mindset. And I think a lot of goalkeepers and parents of goalkeeping coaches out there have a perfectionist mindset that everything has to be perfect. And I think that was the key message even on the camps today. You could have 100 actions of whatever in the domains of the session, and you're telling me you're going to get 100 clean. It's not possible.
Yeah.
The key information, and again in context, is to make sure, are you learning, are you conscious of what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then more importantly, when you cross the white line, can you then execute that in the moment, because you might only have one chance at it.
Yeah.
So you could get it right 99 times out of 100, but if you step across the white line and you can't in that moment, then that becomes a problem, doesn't it? So I think understanding that it's scruffy and it might not look clean, and there'll be a lot of maybe throwaway comments with regards to the outfielders, or whether that's a coach or other parents that don't understand the position. It can be lonely. The biggest thing I would say is allow your child, son or daughter, to just speak. Allow them to speak before you speak. Ask them what they think, and more importantly what they were feeling, and then that allows reflection, and then that's when your learning can come in and you can kind of guide them. So that would be probably my key message with regard to that.
We talked about Shea Given back at the beginning. A little bit different really, because Shea, comparatively to some of the keepers that we've had mentioned in the interviews before, is relatively modern in his keeping. But how do you think Shea would have coped in today's game?
Shea, I hope you're not watching this first and foremost. No, I think he's I think the first thing that's going to spring to everyone's mind is his physical profile, because now you look at the goalkeeping domains, and I'll say this: we stand in the tunnel on a match day on a Saturday, and you're seeing the size of some of these guys. Oh my God! Like, I'm 6'4", and they're absolute beasts. I mean, take Sanchez for example at Chelsea, physically to a point where it is like the peak of athleticism, peak performance. But I think interestingly there's so much more to the game than just that. Yeah. And I think what Shea possessed was his anticipation and his reflexes on his goal line. Yeah. And his technical outputs in game were so well executed that I feel now, not just in goalkeeping but in football in general, the game has gone so physical heavy that we've actually negated so much of the basics. Your save choices, your scoop, your volley, your collapse save, your step and push, your crossing techniques. All these aspects now, even at senior level, I feel, aren't mastered because coaches value either physical profiles or they value maybe the tactical aspects before you've even mastered your bread and butter, which is like your level 1 and level 2. So you take it in kind of your strides, in the sense of when you're in the moment, you're in the pressure, you'll always revert back to your technique. If your technique's poor, then you're already off to a negative start. If your technique's good, it can get you out of less than ideal situations, because you'll always be dealt a raw hand, in a sense of I've been caught out of position, or I'm in like a grey space, no man's land. But if your technique's good, it can get you out of bother. So I think that's what Shea kind of possessed, that kept him ahead of his time in that aspect.
I love it. Jonny, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on.
Thank you very much for having me.
for your time.
Thank you, really appreciate it.
And we'll see you for another episode shortly.
Thanks.
Bye.